All right. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast Interview. And today we are rejoined for the fourth time by my amazing friend, also my personal coach, longest coach I've ever had in my life. So, Kamille, we're going on what, 9 years working together?
Probably,
Yeah,
yes.
at least eight, going on our ninth year. So, longest
Yes.
coach I've ever had. And you guys, there's a reason why she's been the longest coach I've ever had, because she has been the most impactful, the most effective. And the work that
Mm.
she does is different than a lot of us in the real estate industry. When we think of coaches, we're thinking of real estate coaches, right? Kamille is a mindset peak performance coach. 90% of success is what's going on up here in between these 2 ears. And yeah, you got the roadmap. My obsession has always been, okay, I know what to do. I know how to do it. I know why to do it. Why am I not doing it? Like, what are those mental blocks? And Kamille is the best I've ever found at helping me identify what those mental blocks are, unpack those, and just, again, operating that peak performance state so I can operate as the best version of myself to be able to operate in business, but also personal life. So she's had such a massive, massive impact on every aspect of my life. So stoked and
Mm.
honored to have my coach, Kamille, back on the podcast. Welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, Josh. Always an honor. I will say it every time we get together, but in the 9 years, and most folks in the GSD crew know this, but in the 9 years that Josh and I have worked together, I still, up to this day, have no idea how he's not bored of me. Reason being, he's probably heard me say the same thing again and again and again for almost a decade now. But my theory is because that we're always evolving and changing. And so it's cool because Josh, I mean, I've seen where you were. I mean, just GSD's evolvement and you as an entrepreneur, as a father, as a husband, the journey of a decade's worth of coaching and friendship. It's so cool to see. And I don't think enough people get to really see all the back end stuff that you go through. I do because I hear about it all the time, but they get the front facing GSD guys. But the amount of work you put into this piece right here, because business is like this, marriage is like this, life is like this. So it's not as easy as people I think make it seem like, oh, you just do these things. It's like, no, he goes there. He goes deep. I mean, you've had to ask yourself some really tough questions. So I'm grateful for you as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I always look at it, I would say your theory is right. Is like there's certain books that I reread every year. And certain books I've read, going on, I don't know, 15, 16 times. But every time I read them, I pick up a different, completely different, powerful message. Because it's like you evolve into something else, and you might say one thing here, but it's the teacher appears when the student's ready. So
Hmm.
there's different times I'm ready to hear different messages, from you. And when we started this journey, just so everybody knows that's watching, listening, I was at a point in my life where I was like, man, I had a successful business, money in the bank, amazing wife, amazing kids. But I kept asking myself, dude, like, why am I not happy? Like on the out,
Hmm.
like I got everything. And I wasn't like depressed, but I'm like, dude, like I should be like, I have every blessing in the world. I got the best friends, best wife, best kids, best, amazing business. But there's pieces I was lacking with fulfillment. And that's why that was sort of our journey. I'm like, dude, like I got to fix this, right? Like I want to be fulfilled, in all aspects. And just the things that you've had me unpack and, and the deep work that we've done
Yeah.
together, man, it's been a wild ride, but it's been so powerful and impactful. And all right, so I want to jump in. First thing I want to talk to you about is, okay, if we look at the real estate market, because I know you work with elite entrepreneurs, executives,
Hmm.
professionals, and all aspects of life, but you work with a ton of realtors too, and
A
team
lot of
leaders and
them. Yeah.
brokerage owners. So
Hmm.
you see this firsthand, right? So okay, market's way down. This is the worst real estate tightening that we maybe have ever seen, in history, when you calculate, transaction volume versus population versus agent count. So transaction volume's way down. A lot of realtors, probably most, are having the worst year of their lifetime. Inflation continues going up. It's the most
Hmm.
unaffordable time to be alive as a U.S. citizen. A lot of people are demoralized right now. Then with all the crap going on in the world,
Yeah.
and I don't want to say the crap going on in the world is better or worse than it's ever been, but now with social media, we get stuck in these echo chambers,
Correct.
right? Where it's so easy to get caught in these negative, demoralizing spiral loops. Like, what are you doing with your clients, and what recommendation do you have for people that kind of get out of that state so they can get in the right mental state that they need to be to push forward and get things turned around?
Yeah. Well, and this is a great question, Josh, because as of this recording, I think, at least in the United States, there's just been a huge amount of news, particularly negative news. And so I could even feel it just in general with people around me. They just feel down. And things are becoming even more polarizing. And you are correct, especially with the advent of AI and social media being such an ingrained part of life now. Like you can't even imagine life without, TikTok and Instagram and just things coming at you. We are in a whole different um, day and age when it comes to how we consume media and what we're exposed to. So that we have to recognize one that, especially for my clients, so I was born 1985. So I'm in that millennial generation, but I have a lot of quote unquote boomer clients, Gen X clients, etc. And we've gone through a lot, like meaning we've experienced life pre-computer, pre-internet, with internet, learning computer, like so been a big shift in the way that we've had to understand the world, deal with the world. Before, when we just get one newspaper a day, that was about it. And maybe you watch the 6 p.m. nightly news. Now it's like every second you're bombarded with stuff. So one, recognize, wow, I've had to catch up to a lot of stuff. My mind, body, soul, nervous system, brain development has had to change rapidly. Number two, to your point of maybe it's not worse than it's ever been. We just are aware of a lot more things now because of the information age that we're in, because things are just coming at you. You don't have to go and look for it. So, with that said, imagine if for a long time you lived in an area like a desert. And one of your skill sets was, okay, as a desert dweller, I need to go look for water and shade. Those are two ways that I survive. So you create these skill sets in which you go and find sources of water, sources of shade, and that's how you get relief and comfort and you take care of yourself. Let's just say, right? I'm just kind of biologically setting this up for us. And then all of a sudden, that training, that environment that you've lived in and adapted to for such a long time, all of a sudden changes overnight. And now you live in water. You're just in it. Like you never have to go find it. You're just surrounded by it. So instead of being a desert dweller, you've learned how to become like a swimmer. And there's shade all the time, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a completely different skill set. You don't have to go look for it. It's coming at you. You have to learn to now swim in these waters. And now comfort to you is actually, oh, I would like to go sit on a dry piece of land every now and again and just not have to swim constantly. So I set this up kind of in a visceral way because from a psychological standpoint, we're going through that right now with content coming at you, right? Before we have to go to the library to find information. And maybe we have to go learn to search things on Google. So we had a trained mind to go look for it. Now you're in it. So the skill set is very different now. Whereas before, we're like, I gotta find this, I gotta find that. Now, what I'm teaching a lot of entrepreneurs is you have to learn to discern what is truth and what is not truth and create your own desert space, is what I kind of call it. But that's power in the pause. Create very intentional times to step away, to fast from the digitized world that we live in. It is the only way that you can recalibrate and almost retrain your mind and your nervous system to get away from the fight or flight cycles that you're constantly in when you're consuming media nonstop. Because what you have to understand is, and this is not saying all social media, all tech is nefarious or evil. Nothing is that thing. Just like money is not evil in and of itself, but people can use it for evil and people can use it for good, right? Social media is the same way. Social media is in and of itself not evil. There's a lot of great stuff I see all the time on social media. There's a lot of really negative stuff. But one of the mechanisms of social media you have to understand is that it is designed, it's a business, to keep you on the platform for as long as possible. So, what do you do in order to keep somebody on something, addicted to something as long as possible? You appeal to the psychological vulnerabilities of people. And what are our psychological vulnerabilities? Well, we like things that are scary, right? We're not going to move our eyes away from it if it's like, oh, I need to know this. That's why you hear clickbaity, buzzwords. But to go back to my example of if you've been trained your whole life to live in a desert environment and now you're just constantly swimming, the body and the mind at this state of human evolution was never trained, up until this point at least, to handle this much information, this much fear, this much clickbait all at once, right? I was reading somebody's post the other day where it's like, let's say their feed is just filled with the news of, as of this recording, like the assassination of a particular individual. So it's just, oh, the entire feed is that. And then the next image after that is like a happy bunny jumping around, and it's a really funny video and it's a meme, and it's like, oh, and so your emotions go this way. But then you go back to like the news of the assassination and then a school shooting and then the news of this. And it's our nervous systems were never meant to handle that. So entrepreneurs, anybody, realtors just need to recognize that one of the things you are battling right now is a brain and nervous system that is getting recalibrated for constant fight or flight and fear. So if we're not careful and we don't step away from it, we don't fast from it, we naturally start to think constantly like the sky is falling. But the truth is, and this is just life, this is human cycles of evolution, there is always opportunity in everything. But that's why I say I encourage my clients when we do our mastermind call every single Wednesday. Right now, we're meeting 4 p.m. Los Angeles time, but this is our moment of pause where we get on a Zoom, we are talking to one another. I have them do exercises where they are writing pen to paper, and it's just for them to hear their own thoughts again, to step back from the daily grind and the noise to rethink again. Because what I'm actually doing is not just teaching or not just coaching, but I'm helping them to create new neural connections in their mind of, oh, I hear my own thoughts. I'm not just taking in somebody else's. Oh, I'm seeing my own writing on paper again, and this is what I would like to do. Not again, just consuming somebody else's. So we're actually building mindset muscles that we're not always doing throughout the day. And that ability to critically think for yourself, that ability to discern truth from lies, um, and the ability to actually play in your zone. So even for realtors, I coach many of them. You might say, oh, I'm just competing with other realtors. It's like, no, you have a particular personality, a demographic, a way of doing your business that's so different than the person next to you, even if you're in the same zip code. But if you're constantly looking on social, if you're only going to AI as your source of like, what should I do? And you're not just thinking for yourself, you'll never have a competitive edge because you're no longer your unique you, because you don't spend enough time in stillness to figure out what that is. We have now gotten so used to social media telling us what to do, AI telling us what to do. We're almost even losing our critical thinking skills, which is a whole different conversation. And we could go there too. But the short of it is take time in the pause. Like, take time to write down your own thoughts. Fast from digital technology for a little bit, even if that's 5 minutes a day. Don't bring your phone to the bathroom. You will be surprised as far as, oh, I have my own original thought again. Maybe life isn't as bad. And once you're able to shift those lenses into, okay, it's all right, you can actually find opportunity. Because that's the flip side to the real estate is while a majority of the market is struggling, I do have a lot of clients who are absolutely crushing right
Yeah.
now. And that's, that's with anything in business, but part of it, and this is just an observation, a lot of those people who are crushing it, social media is not a place for them to consume as much as it is a place for them to produce. So they're content creators or they're not on it at all. Like I have a couple of clients, like they don't use social media at all and their businesses are doing very, very well. So it's possible. But we have to actually set up a daily ritual, rhythm, and routine that is not dependent on being glued to our phones and our feeds all the time.
So it sounds like, that is kind of like stopping the bleeding from, okay, I'm feeling demoralized, I'm feeling down, okay, going through those detoxes,
Hmm.
and dude, and you taught me to do this, but like before, I never really paid attention to how I felt in the moment. Like meaning that like, okay, with the things that went on with Charlie Kirk, so
Hmm.
yesterday I find myself on X for hours. Yeah, right. Just seeing what, right. And I'm like, and I never go on so, but I couldn't help myself. And, but then, man, I was getting so, just so sad, so getting down. I just couldn't believe
Hmm.
it. Couldn't, because I was working back-to-back meetings the day before, so I didn't know about it till like, I don't know, 8 hours after it happened.
Hmm.
Um, but then I was like, man, I need a break. So I brought my son to soccer practice and I just kept my phone, put my phone away and I just walked for 2 hours, just around the
Wow.
field in nature. But then all of a sudden I went from being like in a negative, depressed, sad state to, I could feel the difference that all was already happening internally, you know. So yeah, and there are, it's super sad, unfortunate situation, but it's like, okay, do we need to be glued to it? Yeah, right.
Correct.
So then, okay, I look at that as, okay, stopping the bleeding. So let's just say we're stopping the bleeding. So, kind of starting to change our energy. But then from there, like let's just say somebody's been struggling for a year and a half, 2 years. They've just been getting kicked in the teeth, right? And they're like, okay, I'm going to do these things to stop the bleeding. But then how do I start getting in the right state of mind to start turning things around? Like to
Yeah.
go from, we're not getting it, we're not worsening it, but how do I go from, back into that right positive state?
Yeah. Well, and thank you so much for that great metaphor. To kind of play that out even more, the stop the bleed metaphor. So my husband is a volunteer with our local Pasadena Fire Department as a medic. And so when I think about what he does when he gets to an emergency situation, same thing, assess it, get safety, stop the bleed. After that, the next part of the relay race is get that person to the experts who specialize in that particular issue, right? So take them to the hospital, take them to ER because the doctors and the nurses know what to do next. So I would say following that similar metaphor is once you feel like you're at a place where, okay, I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I think I was able to take a walk in the park. I got my head up out of this horrendous state. And by the way, even if you're not at that place and you're like, actually, I'm still in a horrendous state, I would still say go to the ER. And what that means to me is you need to find community experts, people who specialize in the very thing that I need to get better at this. Sometimes that's coaching, sometimes that's community, sometimes that could be a local, church group or a therapist, but it's just somebody or some group of people that specializes in that thing. Because what you don't want to do, especially in moments like this, is isolate. Right. I know it's easy because sometimes it feels safer to be in isolation than in connected community, but there's nothing that starts to move you faster than when you have accountability with a strong community of life, like valued, like-minded individuals. So, for example, like with your group with GSD Mode, I see a lot of those realtors and those high achievers just even in their interacting in your school feed or on the monthly calls that we do, that's massive, right? Because they're going to have bad moments and bad months. But what I appreciate is the fact that they have a place to go. In fact, I was just recording some content before this where I talked about I find that there are two types of people often in our lives. There are drainers and there are gainers. And it's what it sounds like. There are some people you interact with and they just drain the life out of you. Right. And it can also be platforms, by the way. So, like you said, you're on X for how many hours and notice how addictive it is, right? You're the type of person too. Like, if you don't like something, you're off it right away. But that's what I mean is it plays to our psychological vulnerabilities. It's got the slot machine effect. So, by the time we know it, we've been on, whatever, Instagram, TikTok, X for an hour. And we're like, oh my gosh, I've been doom scrolling for that long. How did this happen? It's really tricky. It's quite good, but it's going to drain you. Now, it's a rare person that I find who has so curated their feeds that they're like, every time I go to social media, I feel so energized and excited. If that's you, please drop something in the comments. Tell us how you're doing it because you're doing something right. But for the most part, it's draining. People can be like that too. Now, the rarer person that I do not see as many people connecting with is what I call the gainers. The gainers in one's life are those people you interact with, and you literally, it sounds like what it says, you gain energy, you gain insight, you gain wisdom. You walk away feeling filled up, like, wow, I just got something amazing here. And to be honest, they don't necessarily have to be dropping knowledge or wisdom. Sometimes it's just their presence. Like if you've got that friend who they're just so happy or they're so joyful, sometimes just being around them is just nice. They haven't said a thing, but you're like, I like being around you. You're cool. We want more of those people. But what I found with successful leaders, realtors, entrepreneurs, is they're extremely intentional about spending time with those people. And so that's what I meant by community groups or coaching. Sometimes that's extremely helpful in an entrepreneur's life because it is a consistent place and space you go to every Monday at this time, every Wednesday at this time. It's like going to the gym, and I get to be around my gainers again. Because by default, you're going to walk into life and be drained by different interactions because people have their own issues, they have their own stuff. Most people are very unaware of what we're talking about right now, how to control the mind, how to master it, how to be able to shift emotions quickly, like all these little tools. And so that's what I would say is once you stop the bleed, step number two, find your gainers. Find your
Yeah.
success squad, find your group of people, even if it's one mentor, one guy, one gal who you're like, I love interacting with them. That's important.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I have a lot of realtors that'll reach out to me for help. And I'll commonly hear from them of, man, everybody I know is struggling right now. And my mind just goes to, man, you got to get around different people. Because like everybody I hang
Yeah.
out with, all that I spend time with, they're all crushing it, having the best year of
Yeah.
their career. Our
Mm-hmm.
conversations are about like, how are we going to finish out this year, the best year of our lives? What are we going to be doing in 10
Yep.
years, 5 years, but that's intentional, right? It doesn't mean that I won't go hang out with somebody that's struggling, but dude, if you're still struggling in 6 months, you haven't turned your situation around, then I don't, want you around me. And that might sound
Mm-hmm.
harsh,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, look, dude, you're just you want to be a victim, yeah, right? Versus, and I'm
Yeah.
not saying that that's just how I've choose to, I want people that are serious about leveling up, surrounded by me, so I have those gainers. But the
Yeah.
thing that a lot of people, because like Jim Rohn, we've all heard the famous quote a bazillion times: if you're the average of the five people that you spend most time around. But now we're not just talking about the physical people. What you're talking about here at the beginning was the online spaces and that
Mm-hmm.
online community, that online influence. And I don't think people really pay attention to, what that negative impact that's doing on them.
100%. A big thing that you'll always hear me talk about. So in my formula of peak performance, I have a method that I call the MAE method. So that's mindset, action, and environment. These are the three pillars I always cover in everything because I've found that in a decade of doing performance coaching, once somebody is locked in on all three of these pieces, they've got a great setup on their mind. They're taking great action. That's habits, rituals, rhythms, routines. But the third is environment. This is one that's not talked about as often, but you hear me say rig your environment for success. And there's different types of environments. So you have a physical environment. Your environment can also be your calendar. So I'm talking about your people environment. But the third one that I've involved in the environment module in probably just the past like 4 years is the digital environments. You have to now rig your digital environments for success because from your laptop to your feeds to your phone, it's the environment you actually probably interact with more. Like you probably have more conversations with a podcaster or this YouTuber or this influencer than you do your own friends. And what I mean by conversation is you're listening to them a lot more. So, with that said, think of it like the foods you eat. If the food I consume then affects the health and the state of my body. So if I'm eating a bunch of Krispy Kreme donuts all day long, I cannot expect to be nice, thin, trim, slim, and fit, right? I'm going to get bigger. I'm likely going to get diabetes. And if I'm not working out, all that stuff, it's not going to be good. It's the same thing with your eyes and your ears. What are you consuming? So you cannot expect to consume negative stuff on feeds, negative things on social media, and think, I'm going to have a healthy, spiritual life. I'm going to have a healthy mental and emotional life. No matter how strong you think you are, you can't start to separate the fact that this is what your mind is consuming and these are what your ears are consuming. Again, I understand what people say, like, no, I could read it and know that's not me. But I'm telling you, if you're constantly hearing voices of negativity, anger, and argument, that's going to get in you. Why? Because the brain cannot tell the difference often between reality and what is not. It
Yeah.
just takes what is. And so it's like, okay, he's putting a lot of inputs that are negative, fear-based, scary. So it's naturally going to activate your nervous system to be like, yo, we better be prepared for battle and a war because you're telling me all this stuff is happening. Because again, your brain's just trying to help you survive. So to your point, being on X to get information once, fine. Staying on it for hours, what else are you going to get from that that you don't already know? Right.
Yeah. And the prime example of that is what I said just with my experience yesterday, right? I don't know how long I was on there. I didn't look at my screen time, but I probably spent a good 3 hours, right? But again, it just put me in the, because it's like, okay, the fact that it happened, right? And that just, mass, I mean, it was just, I couldn't believe like they actually had videos of it, right? And seeing that and just, like I felt numb in this way since like 9/11. But then now I start seeing all these reaction videos of people celebrating it. And
Yeah.
I couldn't believe what my eyes were seeing. But after several hours, that I'm like just sad. And again, oh man, the world's going to hell. Like we're now fighting over opposing beliefs, and right. And then people are celebrating people's death. And I don't care what you think about somebody's political beliefs. Like everybody's entitled to their beliefs. But now we're, right. Like I just couldn't believe it. Right. But the state it put me into, like I got to the point where like, dude, I went and laid down for a little bit because I'm like, dude, I can't even work. I was like, felt like I
Hmm.
was gonna throw up. But then putting that away, then I go to my son's soccer practice. I'm walking around. There's always other parents saying hi to her. They're smiling. It's like there was this world that I was in. I'm not saying that didn't happen and wasn't happening, but then
Right.
I just got myself away because I can't control that world. It's like one of my friends always says, you can't control the world, but you can control your world.
Correct.
Right. So then I jump in, over there, and then all of a sudden, man, I start feeling like two different human beings, you know.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and I might misword this, so correct me on anything I say wrong here, but so many people are seeking motivation. And I know that you're like, hey, it's not so much about the motivation, it's about the focus.
Hmm.
You know, um, can you elaborate on a little bit more on like what's going on with focus? I'm in alignment with you. I truly believe it's going to be the superpower of whoever can really guard this and control this. But what do you mean by that?
So the reason I say that it's less about motivation and more about focus is because, again, in over a decade of constant one-to-one conversations and hearing the struggles of entrepreneurs and just talking to people in general, and my background being in psychology, people actually don't have a lack of drive. People are very passionate, whether they know it or not. They're passionate about something, and it could be their family, a hobby, their business. So there's usually a fire within most people. Uh, but I know when they say, I just don't feel motivated about it, what they're often saying is, I just stopped focusing on the right thing, or I got focused on the wrong thing. Because what I've found is if I can help them redirect their focus on, let's say, the opportunity, the blessing, what actually matters to them, a better story than the one that they've been telling themselves, that fire just naturally starts to come up. And that's what I mean by the drive and the motivation. So if you're like, yeah, I got to find my drive and my motivation again, I would challenge them often with, okay, well, what are we really focused on right now? And usually what they're focused on is why it won't work, why I've failed before, I might fail again, or it's not for people like me. So you've heard the old adage, where focus goes, energy flows, and there's some truth to that. And so number one is recognizing, okay, where am I actually putting my focus and energy on all the reasons that it won't work, or on the one possibility that it will? Um, there's a really brilliant campaign out right now with Nike. So in 1988, Nike launched the Just Do It campaign, the very famous one. Recently, I think just in this past year, they recognized that the newer generation, so I think it's Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they're a lot more anxious than comparatively to other generations. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. Every generation says the next generation is anxious. But for whatever reason, that messaging is not landing with them. So they do what great companies do is they innovate. They start asking, what do we need to do differently? And they teamed up with a gentleman named Tyler, the creator. And it's brilliant because they use a psychological tool that I use all the time in coaching is instead of forcing somebody and be like, ah, just figure it out, toughen up, just do it. Because it doesn't always work, especially if there's a lot of fear, anxiety, or trauma behind something. So then we reframe. And the question they're starting to ask now is like, okay, well, what if you don't do it? Or why do it to begin with? So let's just say you have freedom of choice now. Why even try? And it's a brilliant commercial. It talks about, okay, so why go through all the pain of the hard work if you might fail anyway? Why sacrifice sleepless nights and do the workouts that no one will notice if you might not even become a champion? Why, try so hard because in the end, the statistics show that you probably won't get it. So why even do it? And the whole premise of it is to set you up to say, like, is this worth it, basically? And for some people at the end, it's like, but what if you do succeed? What if it does work? What if that one person does get helped? And it's brilliant. So it's like, yeah, just do it if you know why you're doing it, is basically what I got from that. And so I say all of this because when people start to focus on all the reasons it won't work, which is what anxiety tends to do, I'm scared. The world's going to hell anyway. What's the point, right? We get into this very like generalized, helpless state. One of the greatest allies you're going to have is a friend, a mentor, a coach who challenges your focus of like, well, what would you rather be focused on? What is a possibility here? The second reason that focus is even more important than motivation is because the world we now live in, especially with the onslaught of information coming to you, is not the attention economy. It is the distraction economy.
Mhm.
um, it's extremely distracting, right? Because if it's not one thing, like you said, then it's the next. And if I'm not on X listening to this one video, now I'm watching somebody else's reaction to this one video. So imagine you're not only dealing with your own emotions about what just happened, but now you're watching somebody else's emotions about what just happened and then feeling your own emotions about their emotions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We were never meant to deal with all of that. It's so overwhelming. So that's why I say focus is going to be one of the greatest superpowers for the people who want to transform their lives and create massive success because the default state now is for everybody to be distracted. You're going to walk into a battlefield of distraction. So practicing focus is actually going to be much harder nowadays than anything else. And you see it all the time. People are like, yeah, I can't focus. I can't focus. Well, because our mind's already getting rewired to like watch a 90-second video as opposed to a 30-minute video. Right? Even this podcast, like most people can't even fathom the idea of I'm gonna watch people talk for that long. Like I just want the 3 minute, the 2 second, the 30-second clip of it. And that will continue to get shorter and shorter and shorter. So this is why I talk about power in the pause or the digital fast or what you did. Walk around for 2 hours without your phone and then resist the itch, the temptation to pick it up because you're rewiring the brain and the nervous system to say, like, oh, we can focus. We know how to focus, which will also give you a superpower of what I call discernment, the ability to say, oh, what is truth and what is not, what is for me and what is not. With AI, that's going to get harder and harder because things are going to look realer and realer. And that's the thing too with news today as well, right? I'm constantly asking, I know there's a meme on it. I know somebody posted it, but is that true? How do I even fact check? I don't even know if
Can't.
what I'm fact checking is true. Yeah. So the rabbit hole goes pretty deep now. And so that's why I say sometimes you just have to shut it all off and step away so that you can reestablish an actual muscle, because it is a muscle in the mind. So, from a biological standpoint, remember with neuroplasticity, that's just a fancy way of saying the brain shapes and reforms. You can shape your mind and reshape your mind. But remember, if you don't do it, if you are not intentional about shaping and reshaping your mind, somebody's doing it. Something is doing it. And if you don't trust what that thing is or don't even know what that thing is, then you may want to step away from the thing. So you can take a little bit more intentional control over what you said. Control your world. And what is your world? Your mind, your heart, your soul, your body, right? These are the things you can control.
Yeah, love it. So I don't think I've ever asked you this question, but if you look at and you have conversations with, the most successful people in any endeavor, they all will say that they failed exponentially more times than they succeeded. The path to success is failing forward and learning from those, allowing those to be learning lessons and adjusting. But so many people never even take action because they're so afraid of failure. But if we know that the only way to success is through experiencing a lot of failures and we want to be successful, but then we're not willing to fail. Like, what is the underlying reason for most of is when it comes to that fear of failure?
Identity. Identity and who you believe you are is one of the strongest forces of the human personality towards action or inaction. So, we were just talking about Charlie Kirk. Whether you agree with his stances on things or not, he was very clear in who he was, his identity. So, for better or for worse, however you want to view it, why he was able to take such bold and courageous action, as some might put it, is because of a belief he had in who he was and what he stood for, right? You could say the same thing, insert any other name. So it doesn't need to be Charlie Kirk. It could be Gandhi, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, etc. Put in Michael Jordan, put in somebody that you're like, wow, this person took bold, courageous action in their life. There was something in who they believed they are that got them there. Why is that? Because the sentence that follows, I am, is what's going to direct all of your behavior. Now, the hard part is sometimes our I am that we say consciously, and imagine if the brain were three parts. You have the prefrontal cortex, this front part of the brain that is very much our executive functioning, conscious thought, logical, etc. This is the youngest part of the brain, the one that developed the latest. That's where we get our form of language. So that part of the brain is like, yeah, I am strong, I am brave, I am a successful, etc., right? Says that. But the midbrain, the limbic part of the brain that keeps our memories and our feelings, and then the very back part of the brain, the primal brain, our reptilian brain, our oldest part, sometimes the subconscious, that's actually what drives most of our behavior. Because whatever we experienced when we were younger, the last trauma that we had in our business, the last time that I failed, or maybe I've had 3 perceived failures back to back, and I just feel like I'm getting kicked in the whatever right now, and it just sucks. All of a sudden, the old identity comes back that you weren't even aware was there, and you're like, I am the failure. I'm the one. It's my fault. I just suck. I'm not a college graduate. I've been faking the funk this whole time. I just got lucky a couple times. I am the failure. And even if you've never said that out loud, you'll always know if that identity actually lives there, because in one of the hardest challenges of your life or moments or whatever, the voice will creep up. And sometimes it's not even your voice. It could have been from something in childhood. In my childhood, I was never accepted. I was super poor. I wasn't the right colored skin, whatever. So as a child, you started developing an identity, whether through your environment or other people telling you that. You can reshape who you believe you are. And that takes practice and that takes time. But the reason I'm saying this is because I literally just had a conversation with a client, like just this past week about that, where if you looked at him on the outside, family man, successful business guy, man of faith, husband, great kids, super driven, very disciplined, you would never think he struggles with insecurity. Like you would just think he's got it all together. And for the most part, he does. He's extremely confident. He's also in real estate. But we were on a call and he was like, Kamille, I'll be honest. I failed these past couple of weeks since I've spoken to you. And I was like, what do you mean you failed these past couple of weeks? I didn't even ask you what you did. And he goes, no, I know I haven't been doing my workouts. I'm not motivated with my business. I should be prospecting more, but I'm just not. It's like business is cool. I've got a decent pipeline, but I could do more. I read my Bible, I do my prayer time, but I'm not on fire for it the way that I used to be. It just feels like a checklist item. So it's just, I'm not failing it. I know I am. And I said, okay. Well, I didn't say you were failing it. You said you were failing it. So do you want to focus on that today? And he goes, yeah, I want to get my motivation back. I want to get my fire back. And one of the ways that I find most helpful, and you could do this for yourself. I do this all the time in coaching. Josh, you see me do this with your group, but I listen to the words that people use because often the words you say reflect the condition of your heart. And I know him because I've coached him for years. And so this kind of state he was in is not who he actually is. Like it was just a moment in time. Like, because I know him and it was so out of character for him. Right. So I'm hearing his words and he's using a lot of words like, I should do this. I need to be more aggressive. I feel out of control. I was like, okay, so let me reflect back to you. You're saying a lot of words like should, aggressive, and control. And he was like, I am? And he kind of chuckled. I was like, yeah, does that sound like you? Does that sound like the voice of God? Because again, man of faith. So we kind of went there. And he goes, not at all. He goes, really? I'm saying those words a lot? I was like, mm-hmm. I said, it's okay because it's the state that you're in. So what's really going on? And as we dug further and further, he got really honest and said, you know what? I actually thought I was being lazy, but really, all these situations, he had a couple business dealings, things like that, that didn't go the way he wanted. And he said, I started to just see myself as a failure. And then I said, well, then if I just don't try, I can't fail, I guess. And so he's like, so I just stopped. And I was like, isn't that interesting? So is it true that you're not lazy? He goes, no, but I guess I just saw those situations as like, I messed up, I failed. And I said, is that true though? Is it an end game? Like it's dead, though those ideas are not pursuable anymore? He goes, no, I just got disappointed for a little bit. He goes, I don't know what happened. And I said, well, tell me, what's your day to day like? Are you in social media a lot again? And he like laughed. He goes, yeah, I've been reading a lot of like TikTok and social media. I said, okay, let's backtrack. So there were a lot of elements, right? But all of this to say what he was consuming, he was becoming. And soon enough, it started to change even how he saw himself, where he knows he's like, you know what? His real identity, how he really feels about himself is like, I am a man who is confident in my abilities. I know I can do the work. I know the results will come when I do the work. And then for him, the caveat was, and when I trust God, God will take care of me. For a really long period of time, a couple of weeks, he totally let go of all of that because of everything he was consuming and just started to believe the lie that he's like, it's all on me. It's totally my fault. I'm the failure. Forget it. I won't try. So we had to literally reshift his focus. We set up some plans with his habits as well. Because I said, you got to remember, man, like you can't feel fit and strong if we're consuming crap. And then you consume crap, you don't feel good, you don't want to do the workouts. And working out is like a really important thing for his mental health and his physical health as well. So I just want to show that even somebody who perceivably on the outside, no one would ever know, like he or she could be struggling, and it's just little things that start to add up over time. But if I could give anybody uh, an encouragement, I guess, is like really check your I am statement. Like, who at the core of it do you believe you are? And what do you need to start doing to support that identity? Last example I'll give of this is I was telling Josh, you right before this, right? I started my coaching business 10 years ago. January 2016 is when I launched it. Almost didn't. And the reason I almost didn't was because of an identity issue. Because in 2013, I remember going to, it was a Tony Robbins conference, his famous UPW thing. And this was before he was in big stadiums. So there was like a single layer floor. So there must have been a beeline from me to Tony Robbins. Like he was jumping on the stage. I decided to stay in the back with the production crew because I just wanted to take all this in because I was like, what the heck is this? Had no idea what I was getting into. It was like a 4-day rave. If any of you ever been to it, it's insane. And I'm watching him, and all of a sudden it felt like the room went silent for me. Still 5,000 people jumping, screaming. It's cold. There's music. But for me, it got silent. And it was like I heard this whisper in my ear that said, and this is exactly what I want you to do. And I want you to coach people. Now, coaching was not on my radar. Didn't even know what coaching was. I was doing like random consultancy for small business owners at the time. And I was like, cool. And I felt it like a surge of electricity in my body. I was like, that's it. This is it. This is the calling thing. I didn't even know this was a thing. Yes, I want to do that. And 2 seconds later, I heard the voice in my head go, yeah, Kamille, but he's a 6'7" white guy with a booming voice. You're a 5'2" woman of color. Ain't nobody gonna respect you. Ain't nobody gonna listen to you. And I remember just going on a downward spiral after that. And I was shocked that that voice even existed inside of me. Like because I did not consciously think that, but when I was met with an opportunity that would take me outside of my comfort zone, which is like jump into this new thing, become an entrepreneur, learn how to be an executive coach, all of a sudden that old identity came up and I had to do some work. Like it took me a couple of years. I've probably invested more in coaching than my clients have invested in me in coaching, where I spent just like hundreds of thousands of dollars. I've gotten an MBA plus plus at this point just in my own deep work. But I am a firsthand account of somebody who knows like until you start shifting how you see yourself and what you believe. And it took me some time. I had some childhood stuff I had to go through, but only then did I finally step out in courage and be like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'll figure it out. And then my identity went from I am someone that no one would respect to I love people and I'm going to serve them. And if it's meant for me, it's meant for me. And here I am 10 years later, thankfully. So,
Yeah, 1000%. So, all right, switching gears a little bit,
mhm,
with the explosion of AI, and might be too early to tell. I don't know, but you're somebody that, studies psychology and knows the human brain really well. What are the dangers that you're seeing with how it's shaping, whether people's peak performance, their minds,
mhm.
when it comes to AI? Because this honestly scares the living hell out of me. A lot of people are scared about AI from, oh, it's going to take our jobs. To me, it's like, if you look at history, like we always adapt from that. I mean, 100 years ago, you had like 90% of the population working in the, food industry. Today, you have like less than 10% or whatever. People fact check me on that. Like but it's not those exact stats, but it's something like
Yeah.
that. But we
Yeah.
evolve, we adapt, we figure things out, right? But what scares the hell out of me is, again, we talked about this earlier, but removing that ability to critically think. And if you
Mm,
look at like Alzheimer's, dementia, they say only like, I don't know, 3% of that's genetic, right? Most of it's lifestyle, but the commonality is a shrunken hippocampus. Yeah, right.
mhm.
It's like they stop challenging their brains and so I'm like, man, what, like, if people aren't thinking, like, how does that negatively impact her? That's what freaks me out about it is like, what's it? We're going to have a bunch of young kids starting to get dementia. Like, what's this going to do to our brains? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're on track with that thought process. I was just watching the other day, there was a re-release of The Matrix here in LA at this like crazy theater where it's basically like a 360 experience. So they reformatted the film so you could be in the Matrix with Keanu Reeves and all of it. It was pretty cool. But I never because I'm not a huge Matrix fan. I know a lot of people are diehards, but so I really paid attention to when I was watching it because I was like, yeah, what were they saying, 20, 25 years ago? And it is a trip because the movie is all about, oh, and humans will now start to, fall into this sleep due to something called AI. And I was just like, oh, we are definitely living in that. But it is this idea that AI can be useful as a leverage partner or as a second brain. The issue becomes when people are using it as the primary brain. Because remember, again, the brain, your mind, is a muscle. And if we don't exercise and use the muscle, it will atrophy. It's going to die out. In fact, there are so many studies coming out, certainly now, about overuse of AI and the degeneration of the brain and particular gray matter. And you're going to see this more and more as, researchers and scientists continue to explore it. But even like kind of stepping away from AI, but we'll go to just the basics of using the human brain. There's a lot of studies out about handwriting and paper. In fact, the studies are so good, they're trying to bring handwriting back to school. I know a lot of kids use computers because we're in a digital age. But the reason they want to bring handwriting back into school is because studies have shown, and they specifically looked at an older generation, let's say the elderly, somebody who keeps, let's say, a daily handwritten journal, so exercises thoughts daily by handwriting and slowing down, versus somebody who does not, shows a much healthier, I believe it was like a brain scan, so that they are at a much lower risk for things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia. Why? Because there's so much more electrical activity in the brain when we're writing, when we're doodling, when we're thinking out our thoughts versus when we're just inputting on a keyboard or not writing at all. So, why do I say this? Similar to you, I'm not so concerned about AI taking jobs as I am about people just no longer flexing the muscle of critical thinking because it's easier to let ChatGPT do it. A really extreme example of this, it was a client of mine telling me about her teenage son. He just got a job recently and he is going to be calling in sick, I think one of the days. And she was like, okay, be sure that you tell your boss. And then he goes, oh, okay. And so he goes to his phone to start what she thought was emailing his boss. So he's younger generation. And she looks over and notices he's on ChatGPT. And she goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm asking AI what I should text my boss." She goes, "Just tell him you can't make it to work today because you're not feeling well." And he goes, "I know, but I want it to tell me like how to tell him." And she goes, and it shocked her. She like understood what he was doing, so she didn't want to like shame him, but at the same time, she goes, "You can't just say, 'Hi, I want to let you know I'm not feeling well today.'" Like she said, "It'll take you longer to ask AI than it will to just type this." And he goes, "Well, AI is going to do it better, this, that, blah, 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 blah." But she said it scared her a little bit because she realized, like, I don't think my son has communication skills without the computer. Like, he can't even just tell somebody, "Hey, calling in sick." Like, there's no practice in it. So she made a commitment to herself, like, I'm going to start just talking to my son and having him practice with me how to communicate without using AI. But we do it all the time. I personally caught myself emails that I used to write before, and I'm not saying you can't use AI to be more efficient, but I was like, I don't even know how to write an email because I keep telling AI to write it for me. I was like, oh, this is not good. And you could feel it. It's like somebody who wants to be fit and is like, you know what? I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm going to get one of those like belly shaking machines and just hope the abs come.
Yeah.
But you don't build any other muscle. You have no muscle memory. You have no, like, long story short, right? AI is great as a second brain. The danger is we are not a disciplined enough people to only use it as a second brain because it's too easy to use it as a first. So again, if I could challenge the high achievers, the realtors, the entrepreneurs listening to this call, is be willing to do a little bit more critical thinking away from AI. Have it prompt you with things, certainly, but at some point, step away, grab a pen and a paper and start writing. There is something really spectacular about seeing your own handwriting on paper, the strokes, the thoughts. You will have original thoughts, different thoughts, and you won't use language like no fluff or a long dash, which is not, probably normal to you, but AI is so used to it. The last thing you have to remember is, and I am certainly no AI expert, so, please don't quote me on this, but from my understanding of AI, it is a predictive model. So it is just looking to learn what it is that you are likely wanting to hear. And so it is learning the patterns of both the public, if you ask it to do deep research, but it's also learning your patterns because it's like, oh, Josh is likely going to want to hear this. Kamille is likely going to want to hear this. And any person who's ever done coaching or mentorship knows it's not always good to only hear what you want to hear. Sometimes it's good to hear the things you don't want to hear because then it's actual unbiased feedback. As challenging as it is, it's important. So that would be my thing with AI is step away from it every now and again and you'll have more of a competitive edge. Last little piece because I can already hear the argument in somebody's head. But it's so helpful for me. I'm super efficient. I'm super, it does all these different things. Less but better is what I would say. Efficiency is not as much as important as effectiveness. So usually when people are like, I get to be more efficient, I get what they're saying, but I'm asking them usually, but are you effective? Like I know you've done all of these things, but like for what? Like, are you seeing the results that you really want from it? Some people say yes, and that's fine. Then it is, effective for you. But others, I feel like sometimes you're just doing more stuff and so it gives you the illusion that you're productive. It gives you the illusion that you're doing something, but the needle isn't actually moving forward in the exact area that you want to move forward, which is maybe income or better health or more leads. So just be careful again of the tricks that your mind will play to be like, "Hey, you're getting more stuff. Look how much you're getting done." But is it the stuff that matters versus the dopamine hit of like, it feels like I'm doing a lot of things, but you're going side to side instead of actually forward.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that's scary about it is like when you're doing research, right? Okay, it's scouring the internet, giving you, whatever, but like, okay, who fed it the data?
Mhm.
Like for me, it's like, dude, I don't want a general consensus. Like I want to go to like the person that's a trusted source for that piece of data. And I know when I'm using it, like I don't use it AI at all for research anymore. Outside
Mhm.
of like, okay, like I'll go use Manus for like, okay, if I'm okay, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona from a real estate business. So maybe I want to know, okay, what are the top states, cities, locations that people are migrating to my area? What are the keywords they're typing into Google? What are the keywords they're typing into YouTube? Okay, for like little quick data like that, fine. But when I'm trying to, you know, I don't know, identify like what's, the overall best strategy for this thing, it's like, well, I guess on deeper level stuff, it's like I can't
Mhm.
trust it.
Right. Well, and you shouldn't because it's not foolproof yet. My husband and I, key example, we did a simple, test with it the other day. So we have a Tesla, and on Tesla they beta test now Grok. So Grok is the AI in the car, and so you could literally talk to Grok while you're driving and ask it things. So we were driving and we noticed it looked like a full moon. In fact, we were like, yeah, that's probably a full moon. So we were like, hey Grok, is tonight a full moon? And they're like, no, it sounds like the blue harvest moon is going to be on August 19th, as an example. And we were like, and it was August 9th. We were like, there's no way in 10 days, then it's a full moon. It's already a full moon. And we're like, Grok, are you sure? Because looks really full right now. And it's like, no, it is August 19th, blah, 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 blah. So we asked it a third time. We were like, man, we're really challenging you here because it is August 9th and it looks like a full moon. We're driving right under it. I kid you not. AI responds, hey there. My mistake. I did miscalculate it. Full moon is tonight, August 9th, blah, 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 blah. And we were looked at each other like, would it have admitted that if we didn't challenge it so many
Yeah.
times? Like, so it isn't foolproof. And when people just take it as like, oh, AI said this, I'm like, AI is a model. Like it doesn't know what's truth. It's just scouring what's out there. And to your point, if you're not feeding it truth, then it will just feed you back whatever it has. Its job is not moral ethics, deep research. It's just taking data and spitting it back to you for now. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, love it. So then, well, and real quick before, because I got a few follow-up questions for you, but
Mhm.
for anybody, and I'm going to have links below to your YouTube channel, to your Instagram, your social media. But if there's anybody that's watching, listen to that wants to continue to follow you, is going to YouTube, Instagram the best place, or is there? Okay,
Yeah, I would say that that's the best place because as I continue to put out more content, one, you get to know me a little bit better, but then two, you'll learn a little bit about what the sign is behind me. You'll see peakmindschool.com. That's my platform. And my private coaching mastermind is the Leaders Club. So those are for folks who are high achieving entrepreneurs who want to play the fullest level of their God-given potential. That's where I support them. But if you just want to learn more about the content and the tools and the concepts that I teach, you can also check out that website.
yep, okay, awesome, love it. And anybody that's watching or listening, there's going to be links below, with all of that, so you can just click on those. Now, do you have links if somebody wants to learn more about like joining your coaching? Can I get a
Mm-hmm.
link for that too? Um,
Absolutely.
and anybody that's watching, listen to this, I highly, highly encourage all of you to explore, to check it out, and promise you it will change your life. But you got to plug in, you got to be willing to do the work.
Yeah.
I will say the work that I've done with Kamille over the years has been the hardest work. You got to be willing to be vulnerable. Kamille knows every deep, deep, dark secret. She knows the goods, the bads, the uglies about me and my life. But if I didn't expose those, it's like, and I know you and I
Mm-hmm.
told this story before, but it's like our journey almost ended about 2 weeks into it. Yeah, right. Because you're
Mm-hmm.
asking me all this stuff about my childhood, my marriage. I'm like, dude, I hired you to get my mind right so I can crush it in business. Like, why are we having these? But then I was like, I spent like a year, well, maybe 6 months doing my research, doing my due diligence, having experiences with you for, your high level one-on-one coaching. So I had to trust my research that I did. So I'm like, okay, she's probably, let me trust the process, which I'm so glad I did because there were so many things that we were able to unpack and uncover that were hidden blocks I had no idea existed. You know,
Yeah.
um, so that's just my, feedback to anybody that's thinking about doing the work with Kamille. Will change your life, but you got to be willing to do the work and go in depth with that. And with
Yeah.
that, because like with coaching, it's like, what do you see the commonalities with, because I'm sure maybe you haven't, but I definitely have had coaching clients that come and plug in and they crush it and they murder it and they succeed at a high level. Then I have people that fail too. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What are the differences that you see of those that the coaching is a life changer for them versus those that their life doesn't change?
I think for the folks who, I shouldn't say I think, I know, because I've seen it firsthand. For the folks who really start to see the difference in the results, the transformation in their life, they are the ones who were truly coachable. I think a lot of people think they're coachable and they think they're teachable. But actually, what the ones who don't, let's say, see the transformation or aren't willing to do the work, they actually wanted a magic pill, right? They wanted the diet pill. They want the magic wand. And they think, well, if I just get the right information, if I'm just here and then he tells me something that's going to give me an aha moment, that'll be it. That's not necessarily a coachable, teachable spirit. The people who come in and they're like, all right, I trust you. It's really uncomfortable. I'm going to try. Just like what you did with me, right? You didn't like the questions I was asking you, but something inside of you, thankfully, you are really, truly, you're a student of this work. You're a student of all of life. And that's part of your philosophy is you're so coachable. You're willing to be uncomfortable, even if you don't always agree with it. That it seems to be getting rarer and rarer. We started this conversation with a really heinous activity, a heinous situation that came pretty much from people just not agreeing with each other. Like to the point where they're like, I disagree with you so much, I don't want you to exist on this planet. Like that's pretty extreme, right? An opinion is an opinion and it can change. Like even if you don't believe it's possible, it's just an opinion. It can actually change, right? So I say that because with people who are coachable, the ones who you see crush it, they're taking the things that you tell them and they're like, I trust him. I will do the work, even if it's a little bit uncomfortable for me. And so that's the biggest difference. I've seen people who they like, for example, what I have to say, they consume the content, but they're not going to put pen to paper. Like they're not going to be uncomfortable in the Zoom calls with me. They're not going to like ask the hard questions. They're just hoping they read something that changes it for them. Not realizing that sometimes we're going to have to peel back the layers and, all of the pieces to finally heal that part of you, to finally get to the root cause so you can make the change. So I would say that's definitely one is they really are truly teachable, coachable, and have that sort of spirit. Um, the second is there has to be almost like a deep pain for someone to really transform. I know some
Mm.
people are motivated by pleasure, but you were also in a place perhaps of like deep pain, whether you wanted to admit that to yourself or not, of just like frustration with the way things were, deep pain with the fact that how is it that I have all of this and yet I'm so miserable or I'm not as happy as I thought I would be? That doesn't make any sense. And that desire to find truth was painful enough that you're like, I just can't stay like this anymore. So I would say to that person, if you are in a place of like deep suffering and deep pain, you are prime for making a change. That might be a gift to you more than you realize. I know it's uncomfortable and I know it hurts. And that's why my encouragement to folks is always like find community or find a mentor or find somebody. Just don't do it alone. Um, Deep pain by yourself is a dangerous formula. Deep pain with the right trusted advisor, with the right wise counsel, can be the game changer. And that's a time old story you see with some of the most remarkable successful people in life. They were typically people who came from a place of deep pain, a place of deep suffering, a place of major challenge because they were able to just finally fuel that what they say pain into purpose. Um, but that's actually a gift sometimes. So maybe to anybody listening who feels like they're in that suffering, it's really hard right now. You you might be right on the verge of the game changer for you, but we do need to do something different, right? You got to make that phone call. You got to jump in. You got to talk to that person, whoever that is for them.
Yeah, things don't change unless you change. Right?
Hmm.
So then why do you think it is? Because you said something there that you're seeing it lesser today, or it's becoming lesser that people are, coachable. Why do you think that is? Is it because just the instant gratification society that we're in, people aren't willing to give things the time, or
I think there's a mixture of a distrust now for the voices that are out there because there are so many um I hate to put it this way, but I mean there's so many fake people, right? Like they're influencers or they're what's the word that I'm looking for? Charlatans. They're con men, they're con women, but they're good marketers. And so people finally caught on to that and they bought the program or they joined the thing and then they got into it and they were like, oh, this person's like a wannabe, cult leader. Like this sucks. Don't want that. When you have that level of trauma, particularly recognizing that when somebody invests in something like that, or even in just following somebody and then they find out, oh, they fell or whatever, there's like a breakup, an intimacy in that trust. It's painful. And then so it's like, I don't want to trust people again. So I think I think there's a general distrust for sometimes coaches, mentors, influencers. And I get it because there's been a lot of people out there who have had a lot of influence over people. And then people found out like, oh, they weren't who they said they were. So then they just avoid it altogether. So I think there's that piece. But then I think also the second is the oversaturation of information that's out there. So people think, well, I already know this. I already know what to do. People tell me all the time, I get it, I get it, I get it. And that pride, anytime we say, I already know this, that is immediate block to coachability and teachability. Because being teachable and coachable is not a matter of, I know this, it's have I mastered this? It's very different. And I think that's a harder question to ask because there's a cartoon there that I always like to show people of two lines. At the top of one line, there's a sign that says people who want change, and the line is extremely long. All these people want change, whether it's in politics, government, their income, their health, they want change. And there's another booth with a sign on top of it that says people who are willing to change, and there's nobody in line for that one, right? So we want it. We're not willing to do anything about it. Um, and I think that's just more of a human nature thing. So I think between public distrust because of lots of maybe influential people that broke that trust at some point, then you have the oversaturation of information. People just think, well, I already know it, not recognizing that knowing has nothing to do with implementation and execution. There's a there's a knowledge execution gap there. And then I would say the third is that human nature that it's too much work to do change. I'll just stay. And so I think sometimes it becomes this perfect combination, unfortunately, of people who are just resigned to trusting a coach, a mentor, even a community to help them transform. But to be on the bright side of it, I also think there's a resurgence of people wanting to be in community again, which is why platforms like School, like the ones that you and I are on, the thing that Alex Hormozy is doing, why it's blowing up and becoming so popular is because people are now on the other side of that pendulum. I think they stayed away too long. And post COVID, right now that we're 5 years out from it, we want community again. But our definitions of community have expanded because of the technology and the way we interact now has changed. So you have these school communities around really unique things. I mean, people who are like, play Simpsons chess or whatever. And there's like 100,000 people in that community. And that's all they do is they play Simpsons chess, right? And of course, you have business communities and gardening communities. So I do think there is hopefulness in that. People are coming back to community. But now I think it is less about the quote unquote guru, the one person leading it, and more about, hey, people finding common values around something and then wanting to support each other in those values. And that's what I've always seen with GSD mode. You could have easily named it the Joshua Smith Coaching Group. And maybe you did at one point, but you formulated everything you do because it is part of who you are around get stuff done, like get shit done. And because that's a big value of yours is like, we can make this reality. Whatever you want, whatever you're dreaming, we can make it happen. So everyone you've attracted, because I've seen your clients for over, 9 years now, man, you have such a diverse group of people. Like people I would never, and what I love about them is they all don't look like you. Like, what I mean by that is you have everyone from like the single mom from Oklahoma to the older gentleman from Utah. None of them would ever wear a backwards cap, a black t-shirt, or go to the gym and drink protein powder, right? But it's because it's not about attracting a bunch of Joshua Smiths. It's about attracting people who they also believe in getting things done so they can have a better life for their family, their community, etc. And that's why I think the encouragement to the realtors listening and to the entrepreneurs is find your people, like find your community. They're there. And it's not going to be about one person. Yeah, Josh may be the face of it because he helps to market and promote it, but I essentially he's creating a system, a supportive network for you to just go out and crush it. And that's what you want to look for.
Yep. Such powerful stuff. And I can't think of a better way to end the podcast on that note and find that community. And again, for anybody that is wanting and looking for more information about joining into Kamille's community and getting
Mm.
Kamille's amazing support, wisdom, coaching, mentorship, I'm going to have her link below where you can get some more information on our coaching, as well as our YouTube channel, as well as our Instagram channel. And Kamille, truly appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be here. This has been fun.
Yeah, always a pleasure, my man. Always a pleasure.
100% those watching. Listen, we truly appreciate you guys. Keep crushing, keep kicking ass, and we will see you next time. Peace.
Peace.